Hey everyone, welcome to your lesson on section 5.2, which is on congruent triangles. Realized that we were a little out of order just because I knew I was going to be gone and wanted an easier lesson for the video. Your warm-up today is really meant to prepare you for the DCA, which is after this chapter. Realize that most of the DCA is vocabulary, so we're going to spend a little time on those warm-ups over the next week or so. So if we're going to classify these triangles, we also need to know the missing angle measures. Knowing that triangles have a sum of 180, I'm going to solve for this angle right here that I marked in red by adding the two given angles and subtracting that amount from 180. So 180 minus 76 would give me 104. All right, and then I can actually use that linear pair right next to it to recognize that the sum of those angles would be 180. So that would also be 76. And then if I add the 76 and the 16 from triangle ABD, I can see what's left out of 180 for the top angle there. So I'm going to add those, and it looks like we're at 92. So I'm going to take 108 minus 92, or 180 minus 92, and we're looking at 88 degrees. Okay, so it wants an acute triangle, so we need all angles less than 90. So the one I'm looking at is right here, triangle ADB. Triangle ADB. Okay, right triangles. I don't see any that are right triangles because even the entire picture itself, I thought maybe I could add these two together to make 90 degrees, but that's too large. So there are none here. All right, and then obtuse triangle. We could definitely classify the one on the right, DBC. Triangle DBC. And you could also, if you wanted, pick the entire triangle, ADC. Because if you add triangle ADC, because if we add these two together, that would be considered obtuse. Okay? So any of those would have been fine. All right, another warm-up again, DCA style. You're going to go ahead and try to draw a picture where P is the midpoint of PN. So go ahead and do that right now. Okay, hopefully you put P somewhere as close to the center as possible. But since it's a midpoint, if you didn't put those tick marks or congruency marks, go ahead and do that. All right, now it says that MP is 17, so I'm going to label that here. And then it wants me to find the missing link. So PN would have to be 17, and the total, I can just add those together to get 34. All right, so if you look at our missing blanks, MN is the entire length. So that one's going to be 34. And NP, that is this segment here on the right. And so that one has to be 17. Okay, one more DCA practice. I'd like you to look at the picture, and it says to write an angle addition statement. So really, as a quick reminder, what that means is you're going to take part plus part to equal total. So you're going to name your three angles and write an equation. Go ahead and do that right now. Okay, if you did that correctly, it would have been angle ADB. Make sure D is the vertex. It's the middle letter. So that's this guy. Plus this part down here would be angle BDC, and that's going to add up to the entire angle, which should be angle ADC. Okay, now let's see what they told us. They told us that ADC is 55 degrees, so I'm going to replace that on the right. CDB, that's the red one. They told us that one was 30, and they want us to find measure of angle ADB. So we don't know that one, so I'm kind of just substituting in right here. And if we solve for x, we should get 25 degrees. So long story short, if they give you one of the parts, subtract them. If they would have given us both of the parts, we would have added them to get the total. Okay, so on to our learning goal for today. We're going to use congruent statements of corresponding congruent parts and triangles to solve problems. And we're going to use what's called the third angles theorem. So we'll learn about both of those today. Okay, congruent polygons basically means that I can take this shape I'm tracing in blue, and I can just slide it over. Whoops, it won't let me do that. I can just take that shape, and I can turn it and make it fit directly on top of another one. Okay, so the best way to tell that without cutting things out is to look at the corresponding parts. So what we do know is that in two congruent polygons, so polygons are things made up of straight lines. In two congruent polygons, all of the parts of one polygon are congruent to the corresponding parts. Or the matching parts of the other polygon. So if you kind of look, angle A and angle W are marked the same. C and Y are marked the same. There's going to be sets of sides that are marked the same and sets of angles that are marked the same. Okay, and that's kind of what we're looking at here. So if we look at these two triangles, the sides that match up, you just want to count the tick marks. So let's just say I start with side AC. Okay, that has 3 marks, and so does this one. So we're going to say AC is congruent to FD. That would be one set, right? And we just kind of look for matching parts. So if I move on to AB, okay, AB has 2 marks, and so does ED. Now, they're not always like the left sides or the top sides. Sometimes the triangles are flipped over, so you got to kind of be on the lookout for that. Okay, the last set that matches is CB, has 1 mark, and EF has 1 congruency mark. So those would be congruent. All right, and you can do the same thing with the angles. So let's say I started with angle C. Well, that has 2 curves on it, and then so does angle F. So angle C is congruent to angle F, and angle A has 3 marks, so does angle D. Angle A is congruent to angle D, and then the last set then would have to be whatever we haven't picked. Angle B is congruent to angle E. Okay, now your congruency statement, I've color-coded, so that makes it a lot easier. Your congruency statement has to pick the names of the shapes that match up in the same order. So if I start with B, notice I did that in green, that matches E. Okay, now I just move on to a new letter. So if I go to C, then I would next go to F. And then the only other letters that we said were matched up were A and B. All right, so you might have completely switched it. You might have had A, B, C, but then you would have had B, or not B, I'm sorry, that was a D. You might have had D, E, F over here. All right, so you just, as long as A and D are lined up, B and E, C and F, you can have them in any spot. You just got to watch your order. Okay, so this time there's no picture, but if you notice right here, the Y and the M are in the same spot. So, the R and the B and the T and the C. So the order kind of tells us where things go. All right, so let's just try this. They want to know what's congruent to angle M. Well, that's not too bad. M is the first letter, so that has to match up with angle Y. All right, and if you look at BC, BC are the last two letters, so you're going to match that up with the last two letters RT. RT, segment RT. Those should have segments. Okay, then we can do the same thing with MC. MC are the first and last letters. So I'm going to match that with YT, which are the first and last letters. All right, I'll pause it. You guys try the last part. Okay, hopefully you did, angle C was last, so I'm hoping you did angle T. CM are first and last, so you should have put segment TY. And angle B was in the middle, and so was angle R. All right, well, we can kind of play that same game here. So if you look at the angle measures, A is 30 degrees, and so is D. So maybe just draw a box. I just pick a label and I match them up. So I draw a box around one set. All right, and then it looks like angle B I'll underline. That's 100 degrees, and so is letter E. So those ones match up. So it looks like A and D, B and E, and then C and F. So maybe draw like a heart or something. I mean, it doesn't matter what you draw. Somehow you got to match them up. All right, so then when we go to name the parts, we don't even have to look at the picture anymore. We could say angle A and angle D. Those are the first letters. Angle B and angle E, those are the second letters. Angle C and angle F. All right, and then we can just kind of go around the shape. You honestly don't even have to look at the picture. Just start with the first two letters. So AB and DE. And then you move it down to the next two letters. BC and EF. BC and EF. And then once you get all the way to the end, you just pick the only set of letters you haven't paired up, which would be C and A. So I'm going to say CA and FD. And if you get confused on that, look at the picture. I mean, you're just naming those three sides right there. Okay, I'll pause it. You guys try this one. Very similar. Okay, as you're working here, I'm matching the parts up. A, B, C, the way I coded it was circle, underline, smile. So I'm going to follow my pattern. Circle, underline, smile would be P, Q, R. All right, and then we're just going to match the parts up. So angle A and P are the first letters. Angle B and Q are the second letters. C and R are the third letters. And then we just pick the first two. So A, B, and P, Q. All right, we move it down a row, or down a letter. B, C, and Q, R. And then the first and last letters. So C, A, and R, Q. All right, that's pretty much it for that skill. All right, so you're probably wondering, okay, great, what is that for? Okay, well, if you've got congruent triangles, you can look at the parts that match up. So A and D are first, so I'm going to match those. B and E are next, so I'm going to underline those. And then the last letter, I'm just going to smiley face. And it doesn't matter what you pick. You just got to kind of match them up. So I know that angle A and angle D are equal. So what I'm going to do is just replace their labels. So x squared plus 2x. And there's nothing labeled at D. But if you focus on this right triangle, we know it has to have a sum of 180. So I'm going to add up the two angles they gave me. And it looks like that's 132. And I'm going to see what's left out of 180. So if we subtract that out, we're looking at 48 degrees. So angle D, I can replace here. That's got to be 48 degrees. All right, looks like this is going to be a factoring problem. So let's subtract our 48. And multiples of negative 48 that add to 2 would have to be 6 and 8. And it looks like the 8 would be positive, so that the sum is 2. So x is either going to equal negative 8 or positive 6. And I think actually both are going to work if you plug them back in. If you plug them in up here, we get positive values. Okay? All right, so we've got negative 8 and 6. Okay, now on to y. Well, let's look where y is. Let me erase all these marks. Okay, so there's two sides that have y's labeled. So I'm going to look at the other side, or the other triangle, and the only side labeled is DF. So I have to match that up with AC. So I know that AC has to equal DF. Yeah, because we just don't know which one to pick. That's why you got to look up here. Okay, so AC was labeled with 4y, and DF was labeled with 60. So if we divide by 4, y has to be 15. And that's it. All right. I'm going to let one of the teachers pause the video because I'm not sure how long this will take. But go ahead and try this one. Match up your parts. And I'll just kind of quickly put the answer key up here. And that way, as the teachers walk around, Mr. Coney and the sub can kind of help look at your work. Okay? But we'll pause it right now. Okay, so hopefully you found angle L and angle E were congruent. So I'm going to set the 111 equal to 5y plus 6. So if I subtract 6, I get 105 equals 5y, and y is going to equal 21. Okay, so let's kind of do the same thing on the next one. So I'm looking at MN. So MN are my last two letters. So I have to set them equal to the last two letters here. So I know FG and MN are equal. So FG is labeled as 12. MN is 5x plus 2. And we're just going to solve. So I'm going to subtract 2. And if I divide by 5, we get x equals 2. Okay, the last one is probably the easiest one to understand. If you have two sets of angles that match on two different triangles, then this third set has to be equal as well. So we could say angle C has to be congruent to angle F. Basically, if 2 out of 3 match, so the third. So what that means is match the parts up. So B and E match up. So I'm going to put 60 here. And C and F match up. So I can bring that over here. And once you get one triangle all the way labeled, you know it has to equal 180 degrees. So you're just going to combine all your like terms, 60 plus 80 plus x minus 20. All of that has to add up to 180 degrees. All right, so let's just combine everything on this side. I know this is 140 minus 20 would be 120 plus x equals 180. So that means if I subtract 120, x has to be 60, and that's it. Okay, you can try this one before you start the homework. I will let Mr. Crony kind of check in on you guys there and see how you're looking. Mr. Crony, if you want to just pause the video, let him try it. I will go through the key here to this one in just a second, or you can walk around and check them, whichever you prefer. All right? Thanks for watching, guys. Okay, Y, Z, and UV have matching labels. They both have the two curves and the one curve, and the two curves and the one curve. So I know 64 has to equal 4y squared. If I divide by 4, 16 equals y squared. And if we square root that, we get plus or minus 4. Okay, and now we can kind of look at the angles after that. So let's see what we can bring over. This angle that has no markings, no curves, can be brought to this corresponding angle over here. And then everything inside would have a sum of 180. So 54 plus 67 minus 5. Let's see, 54 plus 67 be 121, and then minus 5 would be 116. So you've got 4x plus 116 equals 180, and then you're just going to solve for x. So subtract 116, we're looking at 64, and if we divide by 4, we should get x equals 16. The homework is going to be the 5.2 worksheet. All right, you guys, I'll plan on seeing you back tomorrow. I'll have that ready for tomorrow. Thanks. Bye-bye.